Good morning. Welcome to the Mushroom Show. My name's Trad Cotter. I'm the owner of Mushroom Mountain, and today we're going to talk mushrooms all day long. Terrible, huh? We're going to start with the ecology, what mushrooms do before we get into... Did everybody get a handout? The white handouts? Anyone? Who needs one? One, two. Just pass these around until... We'll do life cycles and ecology first. We're going to talk about log cultivation, maybe pasteurized substrate, 4 easy ways to grow mushrooms, and then lunch, and then we will come back and talk about business, pest control, and microremediation, stuff like that, and whatever you want to talk about. First of all, we're going to talk about mycelium. You know, what is mycelium? That's spawn. Mushrooms are not plants. They are, once the spores germinate, they create mycelium or spawn. So mycelium is spawn. Enzymes and metabolites, mushrooms sweat. They produce heat, carbon dioxide, and they sweat. And that's how they feed. Mushrooms also colonize and nutrient capture. Does everybody have a copy of my book? Not yet? All right. Mushrooms fruit when they run out of space or food. All right, that's universal, so remember that. And if you're going to cultivate mushrooms, you have to know that when you're feeding a mushroom, they colonize, they run out to the end of a log or mulch, or they run out of space, they fruit. Morel mushrooms, very difficult to grow. We're gonna talk about easy mushrooms to grow today. How many of you hunt mushrooms, wild mushrooms? Yeah? Who has a really good morel spot? Yeah? Where is it? In the woods. Good answer, yeah. Nobody's going to tell you that. Mushrooms can be small, they can be large. They associate with different trees, different nutrients. They're very particular. Some are large, right? That's a Macrosby titans. That's a real mushroom that was growing in Savannah, Georgia. 5-gallon bucket. Look at that. You could sit on it. It would hold your weight. And someone shipped this mushroom to me. They shipped it on dry ice, and it killed the mushroom. The UPS guy came into my office and it was like dripping wet, just rotting. Set it on my desk and just kind of backed away. And I was like, do I need to sign for it? He goes, no. He goes, I just want to know what's in there. Opened it up, rotted, but the very small part of the base was still intact, and I was able to clone it so we can actually grow these mushrooms now. It's an edible mushroom. That one was sitting above ground for 2 months. So we're going to plant these in a big circle around our fire pit so we can sit on them and roast them. So by the end of today, you'll know how to grow oyster mushrooms. How many of you are growing mushrooms right now, legally? Almost every hand went down. Yeah, we'll be able to grow oyster mushrooms today, shiitake, almond portobello. So what is your purpose? Like, why are you here to grow mushrooms? Food source? Good. Medicinal properties. All mushrooms are medicinal, by the way. All of them are. We'll get to that later. Recycling waste into soil. That's really good. We're gonna be soil creators today, making soil and microremediation. That's what mushrooms do. So mushrooms don't produce seeds. They produce what? Spores. And when you see a mushroom, they produce spores. They germinate. that work? Yep. They germinate and then they mate. So this is a process that you really don't have to be involved with. If you're buying spawn, you don't have to deal with this. But I do this in the lab. But a lot of mushrooms are producing millions of mushrooms a day, or spores a day. And they're looking for something to eat, to land on. Then they germinate, they mate, and once they mate, they find each other, they like each other, then they turn into mycelium. Then the mycelium tries to take over that little part of the world, whether it's the log or the mulch. And when they run out of space, they fruit. They can't go any further. Then that produces a mushroom. So there's basically there's 7 different stages of mushroom cultivation. There's media preparation, which is food. What do mushrooms eat? All right, we're going to make the food for that particular mushroom. Then there's inoculation, putting the spawn with the food source. Spawn run, that's the fungus taking over that particular food. Then they're going to fruit, rest, and then fruit again. That's the cycle. So that's called flushing. I also teach mushroom identification, which is important. How many of you are comfortable picking and hunting wild mushrooms? 3, 2, 3. Mushroom identification is not that difficult. You'll need to learn how to make a spore print, okay? Take aluminum foil, pick a mushroom, put the gills down. The mushroom spores discharge onto the foil, and then you have that spore print. That's a good way of identifying a mushroom. Under the microscope, that's what spores look like. Right? They're very small, microns wide, and then that's when germinating, trying to mate with the other one. Right? It's Valentine's Day. You could also take a wet Q-tip and rake the gills or pores of a mushroom to get the spores out, to get the spore color. And so when you germinate mushrooms, this is what it looks like. So this is a pure culture. That's king oyster, antibiotic media, but it's symmetrical. All right, so it just radiates outward. And that's what you do. That when you plant spawn, it radiates outwards in symmetry. So there's 2 different types of spawn that we're going to use or simulate today. We're going to use sawdust spawn or dowels plugs. So the first method is going to be on logs and stumps. So we're going to use plug spawn. The mycelium is there. There it is. It's white. Not all mycelium is white. But this whole plug here is fully colonized with mycelium. So all we're doing is planting little colonies in a substrate, like a log. All right. So the first method is going to be log cultivation. Shiitakes, easy. All right. Oyster mushrooms, really easy. Drilling holes. All right. You're going to drill them. Let's see. I think it's in your booklet. You're going to drill holes in a log I would say every 4, maybe 4 inches apart. It's near the back of the booklet, okay? And there it is, page 40, page 41. What's that? You didn't get the booklet? Who didn't get one? One? Page 41. What's interesting is the rate at which mushrooms grow. They're all different. Shiitake's really slow, and oyster mushrooms are fast. So the big question is, well, how far apart are these holes? For shiitake mushrooms, I would say 4 inches. Oyster mushrooms, 6 inches, because they grow really fast. And you're going to drill holes in a diamond pattern all the way around these logs, and then you're going to insert your spawn. Just tap it in. Then you're going to wax it over. So what does the wax do? It preserves moisture, keeps the bugs out. Mushrooms produce heat, carbon dioxide, and they sweat. So what is that sweat? They're basically swimming through their sweat, which is really cool. So you need moisture. They need moisture to do that. What kind of wax? You can use canning wax, paraffin wax, beeswax. So that's mushrooms producing heat. So as they're traveling through their environment, they're actually swimming through their own sweat, and that's the heat that they're producing on the tips. Right? So they're drilling their way through their environment, which is really awesome. But they're also swimming through that little bead of sweat. And then they're starting to cross wall here and branch. Right? And then they'll meet with each other, and that's symmetry. Right? That's a fairy ring. Anyone seen a fairy ring? Anyone? Well, it's pretty cool. These are actually white button mushrooms. This is an edible mushroom here, growing in a fairy ring. Most fairy rings are not edible. They are poisonous. Right? The most commonly consumed poisonous mushroom in the United States is called the green spored parasol. Write that down and look it up. Green spored parasol. I wonder what the spore print color is. Want to take a guess? It's probably green. There's only one green spored mushroom in North America. Right? One. Do a spore print, it's green spored parasol. Don't eat it. It's very common, and it commonly fruits in fairy rings. So. While we're talking about toxins, let's do this. Every mushroom is edible. Man, I get a lot of emails. Just subject line, can I eat it? Those are easy to answer. I'm like, yep, sure. Number one, you have 5 options. Edible and good. Number 2, edible, but you wouldn't want to eat it. Probably not. Didn't taste good, wouldn't hurt you. Number 3, write these next things down. They're really important. Number 3, poisonous. Will make you sick within 2 hours. Typically 30 minutes. Number 4, deadly. Deadly mushroom will make you sick 6 hours or later. So that's called degree of onset. Think that's important to know? Yep. How many of you own a dog? Yep. So now look up Destroying Angel. I'll pull up some of those photos maybe after lunch. You should know what one of those look like. They're terrible. All right, that's 6 hours or later will make you sick. All right, so if it's 8 o'clock at night out at dinner, and somebody gets sick at 9, they call me. So what is that? Poisonous or deadly? Poisonous. They call me at 2 or 3 a.m. That's not good. All right, that's a liver toxin. The only antidote would be Legalon, which would be an injectable milk thistle extract. All right. Number 5. What's the last reaction you can get from a mushroom? Come on, hippies. Psychedelic. How do you know? There's a reason I opened a lab in Jamaica. Mushrooms are basically made of mycelium, so they're just compressed mycelium. That's all they are. That's how we can crack one open and clone it. I'll show you how to clone a mushroom today using cardboard. That's cool. All right. Mushrooms need a food source, mostly carbon, a little bit of nitrogen, oxygen, they need to breathe, water, and light. All right, that's a big myth buster. You know, do mushrooms need light? They do. All right. So look at all these beautiful colors of mushrooms: pink, blue, golden. If we grew these in the dark, they would be albinos. There would be no pigmentation. All right. The flavor would be different. So mushrooms produce sweat. Right. So heat, carbon dioxide, and sweat. So under sweat, write down these two things. Very important. Enzymes and antibiotics. So mushrooms are swimming through their own sweat. That's how they drill their way through their environment. Enzymes are like chemical keys. If that makes it easier to write that. Chemical keys, they're unlocking the food that they're eating, the wood. They're taking these really large molecules and just blasting them apart, and then they're able to absorb those nutrients right through their cell walls, right? Carbon dioxide is released from that process. It's combustion, just like that. Heat from the combustion. So they produce heat during the colonization stage only. All right, so oyster mushrooms, one of the easiest mushrooms to grow. Mushrooms produce sweat, as you see here. All right, so I started plating different mushrooms against each other. This is shiitake and oyster mushroom. Put them on a plate to battle it out. And then the oyster mushrooms produce all this sweat that you see here. So that's a novel antifungal compound that mushroom is making to kill the shiitake right on that plate. You can grow mushrooms on just about anything. That's kudzu. Anybody? Kudzu? Do you have kudzu here? No? You don't? I brought some. I brought kudzu and fire ants. Mushrooms are really good at recycling. All right, so we'll get into this a little bit later. That's 30 to 40% of household waste can be used to grow mushrooms. 60 to 80% of a school or business is paper, cardboard. Can't eat the plastic, and we do have fungi that can eat plastic, but cardboard boxes, pizza boxes. Right, I love this. These mushrooms you can grow right on pizza boxes. Just fill it up and look. Oyster mushrooms fruiting off of a mellow mushroom pizza box. Jeans, cotton, cellulose. You take your mushroom spawn, roll it up in an old pair of jeans, and grow mushrooms right off of that. Right? I teach this to kids. They love it. I'm like, wear that to show and tell day, right? Just mushrooms fruiting off all over your body. Mushrooms, when they run out of food, they get hungry. Right? Just like us. If I was to lock the doors and bring in a big plate of balut. Does anybody know what balut is? B-A-L-U-T. Look that up. B-A-L, what's that? No. B-A-L, it's always one person knows. Embryonated duck egg that's been fermenting, like and buried or something like that. Oh man, gross. Can't do it. So if I lock the doors and bring in a big old plate of Baloo, big pile of embryonated eggs, who's eating on day 1? Day 3? Some of you are like, day 7. Still like one person, you guys. How many of you ate the person next to you? Yeah? Mushrooms get hungry, they get desperate, and they're going to eat the duck egg. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about last today is microremediation. They're really good at breaking things down, disassembling molecules. If they get hungry, they run out of lignin. Lignin, I mean, fungi break down lignin. It's a huge molecule. And they use those enzymes to break those things down. So they can break down hydrocarbons, right? PCBs. That's one mushroom there. That's maitake, or hen of the woods. Gorgeous. 13.8 pounds. That's the first maitake ever found. Anybody ever find this one? Really good, huh? It's one of the best. All right, you can grow this on logs, bury the log. It grows on buried wood, by the way. But I sold that mushroom for $200 that day to that chef. He's smiling, holding it, right? Mushrooms do strange things. You know, you always catch them doing something weird. This one's growing off of treated lumber, if you see that up there. That's a brand new fence post from Home Depot with the sticker, the barcode was still on top. And there was a mushroom growing out of it. And this one's called the train wrecker. Why would it be called the train wrecker? Grows on railroad ties, yeah. So it's an edible mushroom. It grows on railroad ties. It doesn't, the toxins do not translocate to the fruiting body. It's got serrated gills like this. And just it's fun finding things. Mushrooms do peculiar things. You know, somebody called me from Florida and said, "Hey, I found a mushroom growing out of a bowling ball." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "Who is this?" They sent me a mushroom growing out of a bowling ball, growing out of the resin. That's amazing. Mushrooms cannot do it alone. You know, they're not sterile. We're not sterile. They're all composite organisms. So mushrooms, very animal-like, branching away from fungi, but they associate with bacteria a lot. They need bacteria. In that sweat that they produce, right? So they swim through the sweat. They recruit bacteria to help them break things down further. Mushrooms can be all these different things at any given time, all at once. Predatory, symbiotic, opportunistic, territorial, but they're really good at orchestrating microbial interactions. So here's a good example of mushroom mycelium spreading and attacking other fungi. All right, so this was an accident in the lab. I threw it away, and then I took it back out of the garbage. But that's the symmetry, if you remember the beautiful symmetry of that fungus. And then once there was a contamination on the plate, that's a mold. So this is what happens in nature. If you look at the original symmetry of this fungus, and then it surges over the top of that competitor, right? That's really cool. And I took these photos, and I'm like, that was interesting enough, but I didn't notice these droplets here, if you all see that. So what's that? Sweat. Yeah, it's a natural antifungal or antibiotic is what you would call it. And then look at this. I just zoomed in further, and I noticed that, hey, well, maybe mushrooms can make their own medicine to protect themselves, right? On demand. So they're swimming, they're disinfecting their environment. They're swimming through that. Surface sterilizing is what you'd call it. maitake. So I started collecting metabolites off of these mushrooms. Mushrooms are really good at stunning and killing different bacteria. That's Vibrio cholera. That's Boletus frostii, or frost bolete, producing a sweat. It always does that. Why would it do that? Right? To break down its environment, to attract bugs, different organisms. Mushrooms also produce octanol, which is a chemical alcohol, similar to human sweat. That attracts worms, butterflies, bees, slugs, and worms. All right, so we're also going to talk about composting today, soil creation. I went to the International Worm Conference 10 years ago. International. It was like the Comic-Con for worm people. Strange. Strange group, right? I thought mushroom people were weird. But so we go from this, the growing media, to adding worms to this in about 8 weeks. That's really good. Right, so the byproduct of mushroom cultivation is soil. That's huge. In the upstate South Carolina where I'm from, it takes, well, let's say there was 12 to 15 feet of topsoil in 1910. And they went back and now they have 5 to 8 inches in the same spot. 12 feet to 5 to 8 inches. Where did it go? Erosion, cotton. So it takes 500 years to make an inch of soil. It would take 79,000 years to put that back. Right? So soil creation is huge. There's also mushrooms that are fairly new on the scene that y'all can grow. Almond portobellas. Anybody heard of this? Good one? Good one. Stains yellow. Tastes like almonds. It grows on livestock manure. Really, really good mushroom to grow. Mushrooms also produce or create associations with plants. These are mycorrhizal fungi. Some examples are going to be chanterelles, truffles, porcini, stuff like that. But a lot of these fungi, there's over 5,000 different mushrooms in North America, 5 million fungi on the planet. And a lot of these mycorrhizae do not produce a fruiting body. You don't even see them. Right? So this is a with and without mycorrhizae. A lot of surface area, nutrient capture, transporting nutrients to the plant. Nitrogen and phosphate. Look at that. That's a beautiful network. Right? So if you're fertilizing your plants with synthetic nitrogen or phosphate, you're basically losing this network. Right? So get to know mycorrhizae. You can buy mycorrhizae granules, inoculate your seedlings. Oh, truffles. Yeah? Anybody heard of a pecan truffle? We also grow on pecans. But if you look at a traditional or conventional, I would call a food plot. If you look at the roots and you cut these roots and put them on under a microscope, they're sterile. There's no fungi in there. So you have to add mycorrhizae to the soil to create a fungal dominant soil system, not bacterial dominant, right? And the best way to ruin your soil would be to add synthetic fertilizer, because synthetic fertilizers separate that relationship. All right, so if you look at traditional, conventional crop systems, there's no fungi there at all. They're addicted to fertilizer, basically, right? Every single mushroom is medicinal. All of them. They all have something going on. Antibacterial, antiviral. Mushrooms can get diseases too, but what mushrooms are good at is defending themselves, whether it's the sweat or they're creating a novel antiviral molecule. That's a reishi mushroom. Anybody heard of that? Reishi? Mushroom of immortality. I've been taking it for 300 years. So adding mushrooms to your garden, to your landscape, even around town. I think my objective is to make you mushroom crazy. So you're just planting mushrooms everywhere. Because that's what I do. Carry spawn in your backpack and just sling it out there, you know, on your way to work. Like a bioterrorist. Mushrooms they hold things together. All right, that's important for microremediation is tensile strength. So that's a King Stropharia mushroom holding 20 to 30,000 times its weight. All right, that's nothing. Nothing. Some of the mushrooms hold 800,000 to 1,000,000 times their weight. Turkey tail, reishi mushrooms. You know, why do we need a fungus to hold things together? Erosion. Where did all that soil go in South Carolina? Where did it go? It's gone. You take the trees away, you take the mushrooms away. Everything falls apart. See?
Were you able to get a spore print of the giant mushroom?
Was I able to get a spore print from the giant mushroom? No, it was rotten. Rotten and dead. But I cloned it. Right? So you can crack it open and take a little bit of tissue. If you do that, you can grow 1,000,000 pounds of mushrooms in 3 months. All right, so we're gonna talk first about 4 easy ways to grow mushrooms first. All right, now that we understand, hey, mushrooms sweat, they conquer their environment, they do all these cool things. Now, how do we grow them? Right? Large. Oh, that's the wrong PowerPoint. Sorry. That was just a joke. See if you're awake. All right, raise your left hand. Raise your left hand. I am a. Really? Just agree to that? Okay, put your hand down now. The best way to grow mushrooms is to think like one. You know, that's what I do. I study mushrooms. I'm like a mushroom psychologist. If you understand what mushrooms do, you can help them. And mushrooms fruit really fast. So you really have to understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and then how to help them achieve their goal, which is to run out of food. Right? So I do mushroom hunting a lot. That's us morel hunting. We already talked about that one. Yeah, that's that Macrosby Titans. 9 inches. Look at that. It's huge. Sorry, some of the redundancies. All right. So when you plant, you can't really plant mushrooms. They're not plants. When you spawn them, all right, mushrooms colonize their environment, and then they run out of food. All right, so that's an oyster mushroom fruiting. 3 weeks after I spawned it. And then, poof, it fruits really fast. So this is only a 2-day time lapse. So for those of you who are growing mushrooms, this is awesome. Tomatoes don't do this. You know, so they fruit this fast. You would harvest this fruiting body, then the mycelium rests, it recharges, and then it fruits again, all right, several times, maybe 5, 7 times, who knows? And that color, like I said before, if you grow a mushroom in the dark, it's going to be an albino. All right, so they also create vitamin D through their synthesis of light. Golden oyster mushrooms, beautiful. These are crunchy, nutty. They smell like fresh cut watermelon. When they're fresh, you saute them, they taste like cashews. Really good. And these do not ship very well. So it's a really good mushroom for the local market too.
What's the name of those ones again?
Golden oyster. Yeah, easy to grow. Pink, blue, and golden. But here's the thing. All right, mushrooms actually love artificial light, LED lighting. So they do need light in the fruiting room. If they don't need light out in the forest, diffuse light, but if you need to grow them indoors, fluorescent light works well, but LED lighting is really good. Blue works really good. All right, so here's a good example of mushrooms that were grown in the dark versus mushrooms grown in the light. Look at that. Same clone, same group, 2 different blocks, fruiting blocks. All right. So this one is so what do you notice about the shape of those 2 mushrooms? What can you learn from this slide?
One's leggier.
Leggier, yeah. So it's reaching. It's taller. This one's shorter, right? Pigmentation. That's a golden oyster. This one is too. What's the most sellable part of a mushroom? Cap. All right, so what you will also notice, you might not see this in this slide, but as this matures in light, the cap is really wide. Look at this gold. See how wide these are? This one in darkness stays that wide. Very narrow. It's trying to find light, so it stays narrow. Not good. Not marketable. It's an albino. How much vitamin D did this thing make? None. Mushrooms are also very strong. That's an alcohol inky mushroom blasting up through asphalt. So mushrooms can really push some weight too. They want to get out. If they have any sense of oxygen, they just push and blast their way through that. So this is not loose gravel. It is now, but they will push their way out. Okay. You can grow mushrooms on just about anything. Out of anything. This is nursery pots. I did this down in Haiti, growing oyster mushrooms here. So going back to the life cycle, we have to treat it, we have to think that mushrooms are like making a battery, right? That's not a real picture, by the way. We're cutting a log. We're creating a food source for that mushroom. It runs out of space. It fruits. Then the battery goes down a little bit. The charge goes down. It fruits again. The charge goes down. Right? You can't recharge this battery. You can't. So the 4 ways that we're going to be shiitake, there's the diamond pattern there. We're adding our colonies into the logs. They're going to radiate outward. They're going to look for each other. They're going to fuse. They're going to recognize each other, join forces. They're going to reach the end of the log, and that's when they fruit. So that's how that happens. All right? Like I said before, inserting the spawn, waxing it over. There's also, without a drill, not using a drill, you can also use a chainsaw just to make nicks in logs. you can do this as well. This is pretty cool. And then you're going to use sawdust spawn here. Just pack it in, wax it over. Just like that. So shiitake mushrooms like 6 to 8 inch diameter logs. 6 to 8 inch. Anything under that just becomes inefficient, you know. So they'll fruit for as many years as they are inches in diameter. So a 6-inch log should fruit for how long? 6 years. Yeah. You're also going to want to, the wood types are important. I think they're in the front of the book.
So about how many flushes do you get a year with those?
That's a good question, yeah. How many flushes do you get a year? 2. You only get 2 flushes the whole year. Man, doesn't even sound worth it, does it? But it is. On page 6, you'll see what do mushrooms grow on. You can either look on the right and say, well, I have this, and then grow the thing on the left. We've got jack-o'-lantern in there. I love it. That's a poisonous mushroom. That's really good at killing staph infections, right? So when do you harvest your wood? All right, you want hardwood for shiitake, oak, maple, cherry, really, really good. You're going to cut them in the winter. Why would you cut them in the winter? Dormant? There's more sugar in the wood. That's why. You're creating a super battery if you cut them in the winter. All right. You can do this in the summer too, but you're just not going to have all the sugar in the wood. Cut them in the winter. Cut them now. You got about 1 to 2 months before you need to inoculate those. All right. So don't wait too long. If you cut the logs, you wait too long, other spores land, they germinate, they start to take over that log. All right. Now you drill and plug them, wax them over. Now you can stack them like this, really tight, and water them maybe once a week. That's it. Then the mushroom mycelium, after 6 to 8 months, appears at the end. All right. That should tell you that it's ready to fruit or capable of fruiting, right? Rather, yeah. So then you'll separate them out. All right. They're gonna go dry. Get really dry. Be really light. Mushrooms are 92% water, so they're not going to fruit until you give them water. So now it's up to you to make them fruit. Like he asked, how many times a year does it fruit? Twice. That's not good. If you're going to do a market, twice a year. So now you can soak 10% of your logs a week. So write that down. 10% of your strain a week. Because shiitake mushrooms take 10 weeks to charge. So if you have 100 logs, how many do you soak? 10. If you have 10 logs, how many do you soak? 1. 1. That's it. Two to 3 pounds of mushrooms per log per year. You should write that down in case you're planning stuff. How many pounds do you want to take to the market a week? You see? If you have 100 logs, now you can figure it out. Or 10 logs. You just soak that many logs a week. That's all. That's it. That's it. So once they colonize, you tarp them, cover them up. A mushroom log can stay alive for up to a year without 1 drop of water. Right? So just soak 10% of your logs and let the other ones go completely dry, like bone dry. And now you can just soak them. Soak 10% of your logs a week. That's it. Yep. There are different strains. Yeah.
I have a question on that previous slide. When you mentioned about tarping, I assume that you have to use a specific kind of shade
Shade cloth. No, you don't have to. I mean, mushrooms need diffused light. But if you're gonna, if this is an open commercial farm, that's 95% shade cloth. You know, they really don't need. They don't like direct sun. In other words, they just like that diffused light. So you can use a baby pool. You can use this like soaking tubs, trash cans, whatever you can. But you're only going to soak them for 12 to 24 hours. Why can't you just soak them for a week? Kill them. Mushrooms need air. Remember? So they're aerobic. They can hold their breath for that long, so you're going to soak them. They're going to float, so you're going to put them in here, and you have to put something on top of this tub and force them under the water. The CO2, the bubbles come out, right? The oxygen goes in, the water goes in. Now you've rehydrated those logs. Now, what percent of your logs are you soaking a week? 10%, right? And then you could just stack them, lay them out like this, and then the mushrooms will fruit right off the sides, all right? Very, very easy.
About how much could you sell like a pound of shiitake at a farmer's market? Would you price it at?
How much could you sell a pound for a pound of shiitakes at a market? Where are you from?
Around, not around here. South Bend area.
South Bend.
Milwaukee.
All right. The price would be different in South Bend versus New York City. $14, $15 a pound's good. Yeah. Log grown mushrooms are big. You know, they're big and meaty. Yeah. I live in Easley, South Carolina. I can't get 14 a pound. They don't even know what they are. I go to Greenville, South Carolina. I could sell them for almost $20 a pound. Just depends on where you're at. I would also say wholesale shiitake mushrooms. The big growers sell them for $4 a pound. So how are you going to compete with that? You see? But log-grown mushrooms are big. The cap is huge. And what's the most marketable part of that is the cap. So if you look at indoor mushrooms that are grown indoors, the caps are really small, right? They're not worth it. So the moment you soak these logs, the mushrooms come out 3 to 7 days later. That's how fast they come out. So we soak things on a Wednesday. Why would we soak on a Wednesday? Ready for the following week, picking in the weekend. That's right. It's all timing. Mushrooms are kind of easy if you understand the cycle. So as soon as you soak them, they fruit 3 to 7 days later. All right. This is really important. Write this down. Your mushrooms will not fruit. That's how important this is. Your mushrooms will not fruit if you do not wear a tie-dye shirt when you soak them. It's going to be a long day, guys. Come on. Oh, there it is. Mycelium at the end of the log. Yay! You've made it. You put the mycelium in, got to the end. That should tell you something. It's capable of fruiting. That's why if a mushroom is 90, 92% water, now it's up to you. They're just waiting. They're waiting for moisture. But if you have those 100 logs, what if it rains for 2 to 3 days? What do you have? How many pounds do you get per log? Let's say 2 pounds. If you have 100 logs, how many pounds is that? That's a lot of mushrooms. How many mushrooms do you get on week 2? Week 8? You're with nothing. So make sure you cover those logs and keep them dry. All right? Don't let them do it. Unless you want 200 pounds in one day. Yep.
So presumably you're soaking in potable water? The logs in potable water?
Potable water, yeah. Her question is contaminants in the water. It depends on the contaminant. The only contaminant we're trying to avoid would be heavy metals, right? Pesticides, all that is remediated during the process. Watering is a different issue too. You don't want to water or mist your mushrooms with contaminated water. All right, there's no remediation there. So heavy metals would be the only one. City water's fine.
So chlorine stays are fine with
Totally fine, yeah. We actually use pool bleach or pool chlorine in some of our soaking treatments. They're that tolerant. But yeah, city water's fine. You know, they're tolerant to all the antidepressants and birth control.
What if you keep rainwater in a cistern?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fine. All right. So when you soak your logs, question before I go?
Yeah, about how
Yeah.
long did you say it takes for the mushrooms to get to that, I mean, to get to the point where the ceiling or getting to the end of the wall?
All right, so how long does it take for the logs to colonize, right? It really depends on how many holes you put in the log, how much spawn you put in there. You know, if I was spacing those holes 4 inches apart, it may take 6 to 8 months. If I put them 2 inches apart, it might be 4 months, right? If I put them too far apart, they might not ever colonize. I mean, something else might get it, right? Something else might land in there and colonize it. Yeah, question?
So do you water them weekly after you plug them until they reach that point?
Yeah, so like a weekly watering is good. You don't want to water them daily because the bark gets all wet, and then other mushroom spores land and they try to compete for your mushroom log. Just remember that. So you're really interested in internal log moisture, right? Yeah.
Like if you started some now, does the cold weather inhibit the colonization?
Cold weather just slows it down. It doesn't hurt it. It just kind of slows everything down.
So so around here, if we were to start logs now, maybe by late summer or fall, we could have the first crop of mushrooms.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Time frame.
Yeah, so, all right, so now that's a good lead-in for the next exercise. There's different shiitake strains for different temperatures, right? Shiitake wide range, so write these three down. Wide range, wide range. Those fruit spring and fall. That's like a transitional weather. So wide range, put 55 to 75 degrees. Fruiting temperature. Cold. Below 50. They're not freezing, so let's say 35 to 50 degrees, they're going to be fruiting. All right? Then there's warm strains. So what was that top end? 75? Above 75. Let's say 75 to 90. So now let's take a look at where you live. And everybody can write down different things. Depending on where you're at. I'll be in Jamaica in 3 weeks. What strain am I going to take with me? Warm, 100%. All right. We're in Indiana. So now we're going to look at the calendar, look at all the months out of the 12 months. How many months are wide range? Or that's daily high. Let's see the daily high temperature.
Probably close to 6 months.
6 months. All right. So 50% of your logs are going to be wide range. 50% of your spawn purchase will be that. So how many months are cold? 3 or 4. Then the other 2 are what? Warm. That's it. All right. You can do that exercise anywhere. I mean, if you've moved to California, it's different. You know, we were trying to come up with like a zone chart for mushrooms. It's really, really difficult. It also depends on your elevation. Even in South Carolina, some people are at 4,000 feet. I'm at 900 feet. Right? That's different. Yeah.
So, in these logs, if they're overwintered here in Indiana, and then we had, some really cold weather this year, down 10 below, would that hurt? They don't
No,
freeze out? Or,
no, they don't kill them at all.
okay.
Yeah, they're hardy. Now, when they fruit, all right, so we're going to drill and spawn all of our logs now. That's all the percentage, warm, wide range, cold, all at the same time. So if it takes 8 months to colonize, what month is it? November. So what strain is fruiting? Cold. Yeah. So you're working that pile. Are you soaking the warm and wide range? No.
You're watering it once a week.
Right. You're watering once a week. What percentage of those cold are you going to water? 10%. Soak. Yeah, 10%. Now you got it? You got a plan now? It makes it easy. Yeah. Mushrooms come out quick. All right, they're gonna mature really slow in the winter, by the way. If they're pinning like this, that was the question lead in. What if it does go to below 32 and you have little babies on here? You know what happens to them? They get killed. All right, so you need to protect them. All right, you call it like a painter's canvas or something like that. Put it over the top and keep them from cracking. All right, so these little babies are really sensitive, and you want to water them every day now. So you soak your logs and you water them every day until they're done, you pick them. You pick the mushrooms off the log. How do you treat the log? Let it dry out completely. All right, sounds like counterintuitive, but you're basically, when that log is drying out, it's feeding, it's sweating, and it's eating the log. It needs to recharge. And if you keep it moist, it can't do that. Right? It might even fruit prematurely. Not at 10 weeks, but maybe 5 weeks. Then the mushrooms come out small. They just kind of give up and fall off. All right? So you got to be really careful with mushroom soaking. But mushroom yards are awesome. So here's my logs behind my house. I colonize them. Sometimes I lay them on the ground. They'll drill their way into the soil. They'll absorb nutrients and water, and poof, they fruit, right? Logs grown on the ground do not last as long as those that are stacked and kept drier, right? They rot really quick, but they fruit a lot, and there's no labor involved. You don't have to soak them. I like that. Look at all these little bracket fungi. You see that? Yeah. I think that's false turkey tail. They're just sharing the log. It probably meant that I waited too long to inoculate, or I kept them too wet during colonization, stuff like that. But they'll still fruit. They'll share the log. No problem. What about the stumps you leave behind? Huh? Why not? Why not drill and plug those, you know? Fair game. Same pattern. The wood extends into the ground, so it's going to take a lot longer to colonize. Mushrooms that benefit from this are going to be maitake, reishi, chicken of the woods. Maybe those 3 for now. You can also take your log and drop it in the ground, like a little fence post, dig a hole, put it in the ground. It colonizes the log. The mushroom mycelium radiates out looking for water. It absorbs water. It wicks it up like a sponge, and then the mushrooms fruit. All right, so what's the wettest part of this log? Where is it at? Right near the ground. So if you're a mushroom, remember you took an oath. Just reminding you. If you're a mushroom, where are you going to fruit? Right near the ground. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean the driest part is up here, but it's using the whole battery. It's feeding off the whole thing. But yeah, if I was a mushroom, I would be fruiting right around here, somewhere in this range. Right?
So once that fruit's had it, you got to dry it out, it's in the ground. So
Yeah, so this is just a laid back, natural method. You're kind of at the mercy of nature. This is not a commercial way to go. You're not going to do this for the market. But it's easy. Put your logs in. Then they fruit whenever the weather comes around. That's about it. Yeah. So the buried method works good for reishi. These are buried logs over in Japan. Logs have been drilled, plugged, and just laid into a trough, covered with dirt, and then they cover it with plastic, and they punch the holes every 10 inches apart. Look at those mushrooms going right through the hole, right? That's what you would do. Looking for oxygen, a little humidity tent over the top. So mushrooms that grow from buried wood are going to be reishi and maitake, and maybe cauliflower. That's another one. All right, so there's one mushroom that grows on conifers, which is good, would be the cauliflower. Yeah. Maitake mushroom has the highest vitamin D content of any known mushroom so far. That's really good. It's a good marketing tool. The only non-animal source of vitamin D is in mushrooms. That's good to know at the marketplace, yeah. A lot of vegetarians eat mushrooms too. You should let them know that. High in protein, high in vitamin D. Just don't let them know that mushrooms are alive. They're alive and they're breathing and they're animal-like. Oh, I find maitake all around town. It's awesome. Driving around, just distracted driving. See big maitake fruiting on the side of an oak. You walk up to the door, and I live in the South. They're mycophobic down there. I love it because nobody wants the mushrooms in their yard. I'm like, hey, you got this beautiful mushroom growing out by your tree, and they're like, what? That toadstool? You can have it. I was like, really? I'll just take it, and I should start like a mushroom removal service or something. Show up with a van, Tyvek suit, and then give them an invoice and leave. It's $200 mushrooms, man. Chicken of the woods. Anyone ever found this before? Yeah. It's pretty interesting. You have to cook this mushroom really well. Oh, write this down. Sorry, I'm giving you directives, but you'll thank me later. Cook all mushrooms. Right under that. Never eat raw mushrooms again. I'm waiting for someone to say something. What about the white caps? What about, no, it's like the salad bar. That's the one. What about, nope, don't do it. They're not good for you. Mushrooms are made of chitin. Write all these things down. They're very important because they're going to help you with marketing. And more importantly, we don't have an enzyme to break down chitin. Chitinase. Chitin. In South Carolina, it's chitin. I'm just joking. Chitin. What else is made of chitin? Shellfish. Crab shells. How many of you are eating raw crab shells? You see where I'm going with it? You don't do it. Diatoms? No.
It's like what negative effects?
So what is chitin? If you look up the molecule, it's a sugar molecule that's hardened, skeletonized. And if you heat it up a little bit, it loosens into a sugar. So do this experiment one last time. I want you to go and get some mushrooms. It's your homework. I want you to slice them up. I want you to cook half of them and eat a little bit of the raw ones. Then eat some of the cooked ones. Tell me which one's sweeter. Now you know. Now you know why. It's bioavailable. That's a good word. Write that down. Bioavailability is important. If you're eating raw mushrooms, you're not getting anything. It's in and out. It's a chemical lock. Chitin is the chemical lock. So you're losing all the opportunity to absorb the protein, the vitamin D. You see? So it's really important to tell whoever you're selling these mushrooms to cook them. Now they've learned something. The value of your mushrooms just went up. No, the heat does not destroy the nutrients. It helps unlock them, right? What's that?
You're talking about medicinal use and
No, even medicinal properties, yeah, becomes loosened out. Now you're not going to overcook them and, buckyball them to death. But just mere sautéing is important. Just heating them up a little bit. And chicken in the woods is definitely needed, right?
Dry the mushrooms, does the chitin still break down?
If you dry the mushrooms, does the chitin break down? No, you got to heat it up. Yeah. That's a good question. Drying mushrooms preserves mushrooms. All right, a mushroom can stay alive for up to a year dried. That's pretty cool. All right, so I can clone. Somebody gives me a dried mushroom. I can wait months, crack it open, clone it, make copies.
Are you drying it with heat though, or
That's a good question too. Low heat.
low,
So I would say 105.
which is not enough to break down
No,
the chitin yet?
no. But it keeps it alive. It keeps that mushroom. It dries it out, and the mushroom still can defend itself, which is cool. From other molds, other molds want to get that mushroom too. All right, so log cultivation is easy. Shiitake mushrooms would be the one of choice. You can also grow oyster mushrooms on logs too. But let me tell you something, oyster mushrooms get really buggy. Right? So if you're going to grow oyster mushrooms, grow the cold varieties in the winter. Do you have a question?
No.
No? Just stretching. All right. So let's cover wood chips real quick, and we'll take a break. Wood chip cultivation is probably the easiest. Because really, get a pile of wood chips, fresh wood chips. Don't use wood chips over a month old. So I get wood chips from the Powerline Company, arborists. Where else can you get it? How about write down, I think it's called chipdrop.org. I think maybe chipdrop.org. Get a pile of wood chips. You can stop guys on the road who are chipping it for the Powerline Company. Do that all the time. And say, hey man, it always helps when you say you're growing mushrooms. I don't know why. They like it. They don't give wood chips to everybody. They're like, we got a whole list of people, and I'm like, come on, growing mushrooms. You have your tie-dye shirt on? They're like, what kind of mushrooms you got? Yeah.
We have done that before what you just said, and for small-scale farms,
Mm-hmm.
it can really be a problem because you end up with invasive species which you may never have had before if they come in those chips, which is what's happening to us.
Hmm.
Because plants were growing up on the trees, and then even those little pieces still were able to root
Hmm.
and then spread throughout the pond.
Oh, that's interesting. I never heard of that.
Yeah, we understand that problem, so
Huh.
we buy our mulch from utility company, we buy our mulch from utility company that spread invasive species all over it.
Oh, wow. That's nuts. Well, maybe adding the mushrooms in there will help remediate that. Even the plants, because they'll, remember the sweat that they produce? They'll actually burn up the roots of a plant. And I can't, I stop and I'll get one pile of wood chips, from the guys. They're like, well, we only drop one load per house. And then I go to school, my phone's ringing off the hook. I'm in lab, I'm like, man, it must be an emergency. And I check my phone, I'm like, what's going on? It's Olga. It's my wife, Olga. She goes, how many loads did you tell them to drop off? And I'm like, one, And I'm like, how many do you have? She goes, they're on load 14. And I was like, what are you wearing? I go home and Olga's out there in a skirt and a bikini top. And I'm like, stay out there. I think they brought 20 loads. I was going to put a skirt on. Shit. All right, so you don't have to use cardboard. This method is in my book, but it helps with weed suppression. I'll get you in a second. And I do this workshop at Mother Earth Fairs. It's called sheet mulching. So I have Bermuda grass, a garden area that I want to get rid of the grass. You put down wet cardboard, you wet it, and then you spawn it, all right, with King Stropharia. Do you have a question before I go?
I just wondered if you could use sawdust instead of wood chips.
No, sawdust doesn't work. This particular mushroom likes like a larger particle size, all right? So if you use cardboard, and you can do this like intentional beds, like smothering out the grass and whatnot, wet the cardboard first. You wet it. You get it soaking wet. Then you sprinkle your sawdust spawn over the top. And then you can layer wood chips, cardboard, wood chips, sprinkle spawn, more cardboard, wood chips, spawn, almost like a lasagna. And then everything colonizes. And this is what's cool, is the mushrooms don't stay there. Right? They're looking for more food. If this room was the wood chip pile and we're all mushrooms, we're going to run out of food. Where are you going to go? You can go out in the hallway. You're going to peek out there. Any sandwiches out there? Reach out. What if there's sandwiches out there? You're going out there. Are you going to fruit? No. So, you're making an island. The mycelium radiates out, all right? Let's say, here's a pop quiz. This colonizes, all right? If there's no more wood chips around, what is it going to do? What does it want to do? Fruit. This colonizes completely. Let's dump a big pile of fresh wood chips right here, right when it's thinking about fruiting. What does it do? It just shuts off, like a light switch, just off. All right, so it only takes one little piece of mycelium to touch a big pile of wood chips. And then it just signals back to the whole body and says, nope, we got work to do. We can make our colony bigger. We can make our battery bigger. So we don't need a fruit. So let's go for it. But if you dump a big pile of wood chips in here, how much spawn is in that? None. So it's going to have to run through this whole pile. That could take a long time. So let's go back to the logs for 1 minute. Here's pop quiz number 2. All your logs are colonized. All right, you have these stacks of logs. They fuse together. They think they're one. Take a fresh cut log and just set it on top of the colonized logs. What happens? You just shut it off. You shut the whole pile off. That's wild, right?
Is this using commercial ground, this
No.
method?
No, this is not commercial at all. Because you're at the mercy of nature.
Right, it's not controlled.
No. So now I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you some of my mistakes. Love it. I thought it was a brilliant idea until the mushroom said, not good. All right. I tried to space out my mushroom production. All right, so I made a King Stropharia bed here, wood chips, 1 week. I made another one on week 2. Made another one on week 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? Spaced out. Brilliant, right? To get mushrooms when? Every week. Mushrooms like to wander, don't they? There was 1 foot of space in between these beds. All of a sudden, I came here and I was like, man, why isn't bed 1 fruiting? They all fruited at the same time. So I had 10 pounds of mushrooms in each bed. That was 60 pounds. Poof. And then nothing for like 2 or 3 weeks and poof again. All right, in the fall. I'm like, what the hell happened? So I looked under the leaves right here and it was all white. All of the beds fused together. It made one organism. All right? That's King Stropharia, so you want to write that down for wood chips. That's the easiest mushroom to grow on wood chips. King Stropharia. Hardwood wood chips. That's page 22. It's also called a garden giant. Wine cap, garden giant, King Stropharia. You can also write down this metric. For every inch of mulch depth, you get an inch in cap diameter. So now you can orchestrate exactly what your mushroom will look like, what size. So if your wood chip depth was, let's say you're mulching your yard, 3 inches deep, how big are those mushrooms? About 3 inches. If you want to go for it and layer 2 feet of mulch, how big are your mushrooms? 2 feet. It can get that big. I think the largest someone's ever grown is about 2 feet. So it has that disposition to do that. So this sign is to scale. People were like, this is on my trail, my teaching trail. I was like, mushrooms get that big? I'm like, oh yeah, they do. All right, but you can make them that big if you want. So King Stropharia is a good wood chip decomposer. It's a good soil creator. It attracts worms. It's a good mushroom to use intercropping in garden soil. It's got that burgundy cap, so it's easy to ID. It produces a black spore print, right? What's the spore print color of the most common poisonous mushroom in North America? Green. Just testing it. This one has a black spore print. A lot of mushrooms have a black spore print. Right? But this one's easy to ID. It's burgundy. It has this little scaly veil, stringy stem. Tastes like asparagus. Somewhere between asparagus and potatoes, something like that. All right? So this one fruits in the spring and the fall. In my area, maybe April, March, April, and then also heavy in early October, like really heavy in the fall. Likes those like transitional periods. So it's the best soil creating mushroom I have. So if you're looking to make soil, dump the wood chips, layer it, spawn it, and just let it go, right? 9 inches in diameter. How deep was my mulch bed? Yeah, it was like 8 or 9 inches. Yeah.
Is that true for other mushrooms or just the Kingström?
Just this one. Yeah. So what's really cool about King Stropharia, it's a native mushroom to North America. And once you start fruiting it, it sporulates and it just starts spreading everywhere. You know, so you buy one, here's another metric to write down. 1 bag of sawdust will inoculate about a cubic yard of mulch. That's a lot. So when someone says, well, what kind of area will this cover? It really depends on how deep you layer it, right? So a cubic yard laid down deep won't go very far. But if you layer it out at 8 to 10 inches, it might do a 10 by 10 area, 10 by 20 area, all right? Mushrooms will sporulate. They'll end up in the front yard, the backyard, all over the farm. Yep.
I noticed your cardboard was mostly like non-printed. Does that matter? Do they care about the ink in the cardboard?
I would say that mushrooms don't care, but the ink does matter. What's the one thing I warned you about with mushrooms absorbing things? Heavy metals, yeah, that's the only thing. If it's not a heavy metal ink, it doesn't matter. If it's, most inks now are not, but imported ink, I would speculate. So they're going to eat up the adhesives, all that stuff, but just the heavy metals in the ink, which is probably a very minute amount anyway, yeah.
They always say to the glossy prints, stay away from those.
No, glossy print is fine.
You haven't had any problems with
No. They're going to eat that up too. All right, so King Stropharia on wood chips. Mushroom number 2, Bluet. Like you had your chance. But you blew it. Bluets like to grow on barky material. Not wood chips. They don't like that. They like the bark. They like lignin-rich. Leaves, composted leaves, and also livestock, composted livestock manure. Can you find any of that? It's everywhere. I was on my way to a tree conference in Kentucky, and I saw all these bags of leaves like on the curb, you know, people like piling them up, raking them and putting them in Home Depot bags to get taken away. Where do those leaves go? Anyone? Yeah, most of the time to a landfill. It's ridiculous. So I told the crowd, I said, listen, there's a reason they're called leaves. Leave them. Leave them there. They make soil. Mushrooms need it. The trees need it. Where did all that soil go in South Carolina? You follow? We're like moving carbon away. We're dumping it into a landfill. It's pretty funny. Third one for your garden is going to be almond portobello. I think we're going to be the first commercial growers of almond portobello in the U.S. And you can too. The problem was trying to create the commercial compost, so we hired a company in Pennsylvania that grows all the portobellos. They're taking our spawn and injecting it into these cakes. And then all we have to do is just basically, they arrive already done, and we just put a little dirt on top and they fruit like crazy. It's wild. All right, but this one, if you mix it into your garden, composted soil, manure, vegetable waste, so you can add this to your compost pile. It loves it. I have to backtrack. I'm sorry. The Blewett fruits in the winter, by the way. That's important to know. So as soon as you get a really hard cold snap, in Indiana, when is that? The first, like, pop.
October, end of October.
Yeah, that's when this one's going to fruit, right there. Twice, maybe 2 flushes, really good. It's not going to fruit any other time of the year. Almond portobello is a tropical mushroom. It's going to fruit above 70, 75. You can plant it earlier, and I would recommend that. You would spawn it into composted manure. So when is it above? When does it start to hit 70 here? June. So this one takes 60 days to fruit. So when do you start it? April. You see? See, it can colonize at that temperature, but it's going to fruit warm. So just start it in April, right? And being a tropical mushroom, it can die if it drops below freezing for 2 weeks. You see? So you kind of April's probably good. Mid-April. Just wait. All right, so this will flush once, wait for 2 to 3 weeks, and it'll flush again, and then it's pretty much done. All right, so this is one that you can, if you have different beds, you can space these apart and get fruitings every week. If you're intelligent about it, if you do that. This one doesn't wander. It's not like a King Stropharia. You can do it in beds, but you got to keep the beds separate. But if you do it a bed every week, you can fruit this one out. It's the most medicinal gill mushroom that we know about now. All right, very high in cancer-fighting molecules. I'll do a talk on medicinal mushrooms after lunch, but this one's awesome. It stains bright yellow, smells like almond extract. All right, this one goes for $20 a pound. Bam, easy.
Where you're at?
Where I'm at. But you know what? I don't sell these fresh. You know what I do with them? I tincture them, and the value goes up even higher. Because why don't you eat fresh mushrooms? Chitin. Shitting.